Hello and welcome to this special reading that I'm doing for the partial full moon lunar eclipse that is taking place on Tuesday, July 16th. And normally I would always do the Sabian symbol that is imbued with the energies that are taking place. But this time around, I wanted to read a story, and then I'll just briefly give it some context and then get into the card choices, whether you picked card 1, 2, or 3. So this story I'm crediting completely to, it's from this book, The Enchanted Life by Sharon Blackie. And I'm loving this book. And this is a story that she tells to people who go to her workshops and talks. And it's called When Things Fall Apart. There is an island to the far northwest of these lands, close to the end of the world. You'll maybe have seen it in your dreams. Long white beaches, rocky coves, stormy seas. If you stand on the cliff tops of its westernmost shores, they say you might sometimes catch a glimpse of Tir Namaban, the Isle of Women, way out on the horizon. When the sky is blue and the air is still, which happens rarely enough in those parts, here the wind blows hard and long through the dark days of winter, and summer is precious and fleeting. Somewhere along the stormiest section of that westernmost coast is a high, inaccessible cave where they say the old woman of the world lives still. But no one I've met has ever found that cave, though many have searched, and many have drowned in the process. No one knows how long she's been in that cave, the old woman of the world. She's not even sure herself. She only knows that she doesn't remember ever having been anywhere else. Are you wondering what she does there? She weaves. You might catch her at it if you're lucky enough to happen across the cave, right at the back there, creating an enormous tapestry, which she plans will be the most beautiful weaving in the world. Oh, the complexity of it, and the rainbow colors of the threads, some thick and some thin, some soft and some shiny. Right now, she's getting ready to make a fringe for the weaving, and she wants the fringe to be as intricate and unique as the body of the tapestry. So she's making the fringe from sea urchin spines, because it seems right, somehow, to the old woman of the world that such a beautiful piece of craftsmanship should be finished off by sharp and thorny spines, which can sting you if you don't take care. After all, she's weaving the world, and this is the way the world is. She has to flatten the spines to work with them, and so she bites them. And because she has flattened so many of them during the long history of the world, her teeth are little more than stubs. Over on the other side of the cave is a big fire. They say that the fire has been burning in the cave forever. Certainly, the old woman can't remember a time when she hasn't tended it. Over that fire hangs an enormous black cauldron, and in that cauldron is a soup which contains all of the seeds and all of the herbs and the essence of all of the growing and living things in the world. As well as weaving, it's the old woman's job to tend to that soup. But sometimes she gets so caught up in her weaving that she forgets about the soup, and it starts to stick to the bottom of the cauldron, and it splutters and splashes. And then she jumps up and crosses to the other side of the cave to stir the pot. But there's another inhabitant of that cave, and he's biding his time, waiting for the old woman to leave her weaving for a moment. He's been watching her, you see, watching all the beautiful shiny threads going back and forth, watching and waiting. He's a big black crow, and his name is Trickster. I wouldn't say that he was a companion to the old woman, but wherever she goes, he seems to be there too, as if they're bound together somehow, like the weaving and the soup. So when the old woman leaves her loom to tend to the soup, Trickster Crow flies down from his rocky perch at the back of the cave and stands in front of the tapestry. And then he begins to peck at it. Thread by thread, he begins to unravel it, faster and faster, picking and pecking, until by the time the old woman turns away from the soup and makes her way back to the loom, all that is left is a tangled mess of threads on the floor. What does the old woman do now? Does she weep and wail, sit down by the tangled chaos of her work, and grieve because she'll never create anything so beautiful again? She doesn't, because as she stands there, eyes moist, staring at the mess in front of her, a beautiful rich green thread catches her eye. Who knows why it's that particular thread, but she happens to glance at it, and before she can even begin to think about it, her hands are reaching out and she's picking up that thread and she's weaving it back into the fragments of the warp which remains on her loom. And before she really understands what's happening, a new pattern is already beginning to emerge, and a new tapestry is taking form. And Trickster Crow cackles and caws and flies back to his perch. The old woman isn't thinking about the beautiful work that was lost, or wasting her time getting angry at Trickster Crow, because the old woman is a weaver, and weaving is what she does. Weaving is what she is for. So on she goes, warp and weft, thread after beautiful thread, weaving a new pattern, until the next time that the soup needs stirring, and Trickster Crow flies down again from his perch, because Trickster Crow understands this, that if the weaving is ever finished in all its beautiful perfection, the world will come to an end. And so Trickster keeps on disrupting, and the old woman keeps on weaving through all the ages of the world, so that new patterns are always in the process of becoming, and the end of the world is held at bay for a few ages more. When I read this story earlier this week, it hit me so profoundly that I will never forget it now. It was as if something was awakened within me. And I feel that this partial full moon lunar eclipse is awakening something within all of us that has to do with that story. We see so many things of our creations being unraveled. I didn't plan it this way. This isn't what I wanted. I was creating something, and then somebody or something or some feeling came along that caused it to unravel. And how quickly we can think of Trickster Crow as being the enemy, when in fact that energy, that emotion, that feeling, that person, that situation is simply causing us to push forward in creating a new pattern, in creating something that we are ready for. We can't just keep working on the same piece, the same tapestry, because the world around us keeps changing, and with it we keep changing too, and so time goes on. And that's what I feel is so profound about this energy that's going to happen with this eclipse. It's the second one this month, and so it's closing out what the solar eclipse opened in the sign of Cancer, which was a deep emotional kind of like an emotional awareness of something. And now we're dealing with that emotional awareness and letting something go that is very driven, that is very stuck in its ways, that is all about achievement. I have my eyes on that prize. I intend to finish that tapestry, and I won't be satisfied unless I finish that tapestry, that piece, that goal. When in fact, the deeper knowing within you says, You're never really done. You're never really done because then you'd be done. There's always something more. Okay, so depending on the card that you pick, we're going to see how these messages shape up. But I think it's about you letting go of something that you maybe have looked to as your stability and your sense of achievement for so long, and that drives that emotional, because that's what the moon is about, that emotional stability, and going on a new journey. You're going in a new direction. Just like the old woman didn't look upon Trickster Crow as being her enemy, but the very being, the very energy that she needs to keep creating, to stay fresh, to stay inspired. Okay? So if you picked card number 1, and by the way, all these cards, I don't even remember the name of the deck, but it's a traditional tarot deck. This is the back of the card. I think it's something like the Gilded Tarot, something along those lines. And each of the cards will have a crystal with it to help enhance the meaning. So if you picked card 1, you have Judgment, which is the 20th card in the tarot. It's a major arcana card. Really beautiful depiction of judgment here. And I want to get to right away because I want to weave, just as in the story, weave in the crystal energy. This is my piece of chrysocolla, and all the crystals for this reading came from my fire team. So we're getting fired up in a new way. Chrysocolla is called the fire heart for me, and here's some of the words about it. Arising from the chrysalis, becoming new again, shedding layers of what is no longer needed. Perfect for an eclipse. Like a butterfly being developed, not quite yet out of the development phase. Giving strength and power to the beauty and love within. Is very open-hearted, wants to work with as many people as possible. There are many beings in the stage where this crystal power can be useful. Helps to bring a surge to the development process. A sense of being in a cocoon, but not to hide away, instead to develop new portions of the self, and then have a big coming out, an entrance. And so with the Judgment card, what I feel is this sense, and it really feels internal to me. It's really dropping some levels of self-judgment so that you can allow yourself to blossom into something new. Something wants to be created in a new way, and I want to keep relating it back to the story that I read. It is like how the old woman's eye caught the glint of that green thread. And what is it for you? What little thread of something is enough for you? Because the card indicates the letting go. This indicates what wants to go. The Judgment card is very strict and standard, just like the sign of Capricorn. And we need some of that energy in our life. I'm not in any way saying that that's a bad thing. However, eclipses cause us to let go of the parts that are keeping us confined. It's keeping us shut down. And so the Judgment card too is a calling. It always does include this sort of trumpet energy. It's a calling forward of this new part that is ready to come up, that doesn't hold you back, that you don't say, oh, well, I can't do that because people would call me crazy, or I can't make a career shift at this stage of my life. I'm like 5-10 years away from retirement. Or I can't move to a new town because this is all I've ever known and this is my stability. These are my people here. But meanwhile, you've got this fire heart energy that wants to wake up, that wants to come forward, that wants to push you into something new, that has been percolating inside of you for a while, because it's just like being in the chrysalis. That's what I got immediately from the name of the crystal when I first held it. And this sense of shedding those layers that are holding back your wings, and understanding, just like in the story, you're always developing. It's as if you're developing more like a flower with a bunch of petals, but it's in the form of a butterfly. So it's like you form these new wings, and then certain wings, their time is done, and so it falls off. And then you grow new, and it takes you in new areas, it takes you into new places. But a very strong Capricornian energy, which we all have within us. We all have these, they're all threads, is a great way to think about them, all 12 of the zodiac signs. And it's in a particular place in your chart. And that's a good reason for an astrological reading with any astrologer, is to find out where it is in your chart. And some of that is giving way with this lunar eclipse, okay? And this waking up, dropping the strict judgment so that you can create anew. And it's also, I'm curious, like as you were listening to the story, did you have a reaction? Which I did. I can totally relate to this. I immediately sort of got this angry feeling inside me, like, how dare that crow do that? That beautiful creation that she spent all this time on. And then I was reading, of course, like the moral of the story comes forward, and you're like, oh, right. Because if she was done with it, she'd be done. The world would be done if we weren't constantly in this sense of creation. So it's letting go of these very strict standards, and instead waking up to this new, this fire heart feeling, this need to continue developing, and notice where you're stagnant in your life, and especially emotionally. Really pay attention to that with this lunar eclipse, being stagnant in the emotional realm, and instead igniting that in a way that makes you feel more inspired, where your eye does catch that gleaming green or purple or orange thread, whatever it is for you. You have to have the awareness, but you first of all have to allow yourself the space and the ability to even be able to open your eyes to see that potential. Okay? All right, the second card, if you picked card 2, again, these are all from, I think it's called the Gilded Tarot. Wow, you also have a major arcana, just as the first card choice did. And you have the Hierophant. This full moon lunar eclipse, partial lunar eclipse, is taking place in the sign of Capricorn. This energy of the Hierophant reminds me very much of the Hierophant energy, because it's like a priest, it's like the Pope, it's like government, it's like, kind of a relic of our traditional society. It is very rules-based, and that you have a goal, and you have the eyes on the prize, and you go for it. And there's very strict standards, and it's like, pay attention to your work. Never mind the visiting and the emotional reactions and all of that business. You pay attention to your work. You do what you're here to do. It's very strict kind of energy, which is what the Hierophant also echoes. And so for you, this is the piece. The cards in this reading indicate what is wanting to let go. How strict are you being, especially with your emotional reactions in all the areas of your life? And this is not just, consider the story and that I read, and if you had a negative reaction to the trickster crow, and then find out that actually that was a gift to the old woman, and the two of those energies co-create new creations all the time. And so it's understanding when you're shutting down your judgment process, when you're shutting down your emotional process. And when I say emotional, so let's say in the work setting, you can't be emotional. You got to just plow on ahead, and you got to pretend like nothing's going on over here and just boom. When I say emotional, I don't necessarily just mean bad stuff or what people call bad stuff, meaning almost like having a nervous breakdown or having a really big bout of anxiety or just feeling really sad or fearful. All of those kinds of things that challenge us, just like the trickster crow challenges the old woman from the story. But it's also inspiration. Inspiration is an emotional driver, it's an emotional energy that gets us pumped to be able, then, just as the woman in the story, she saw the glinting green thread. And we need that emotion. We need to allow ourselves the space to be able to see that. And the Hierophant energy is saying to me, just consider, is it possible for you to let go of some of these very strict standards of how you run yourself emotionally in your life? Because that it's emotional energy that is very strictly held, that is what we're letting go of. We're allowing ourselves to feel more. And that includes inspiration. That includes seeing, yes, I grieve for what is lost and what has been, and that is breaking down. I'm experiencing that in a piece of my life, in a couple pieces of my life. And I grieve for that, but I'm wondering what I will create next. That's the moral of the story that I read. It's that there's never really any ending. There's only the possibility of new creation. And the Hierophant energy is very driven towards uh, strict standards, and that there's one right way to something, and that you've got to keep your eyes pointed in a certain direction. It's just very solid in it's very highly principled. Again, this is not a bad thing. That's good energy to have. But eclipses are the very energy that helps us to let go of kind of the part of that energy that has gone too far. It's like it's become, what I'm seeing is obtuse. I'm seeing like those angles from math. Oh God. um, it's become a big, it's like there it might have started out as a small seed, and now it's just gone out so wide, and it's taking over too much of life and not giving you enough personal power. So just consider this Hierophant part of you. And with that, you have my wide open arms energy, which is one of my orange carnelian pieces. And I want to read to you, this is a fire crystal. So this eclipse, because it's the sun is eclipsing the moon, the sun is kind of ruling. That's why all the crystals this week are from my fire team for the sun, because the sun is having his say. And wide open arms, here's some little notes for you. Trusting in all that comes your way, a child spinning with arms wide open in a field of wildflowers. Being open and receptive, everything is a blessing, a richness to life that is only felt through experiencing, and opening up to new experiences. So it is this, the Hierophant is very much based in traditional wisdom and like, well, the good book says, or the rules of my life that I've been brought up in a certain way have told me that I must handle this in this way. It becomes very, what we're discharging is this very cardboard way of seeing life, so that, like in the story, You're able to open up your arms, your eyes, your energy wide enough to be able to see that glinting green thread that she did in the story. There's always a new beginning. If something is unraveling in your life, understand it's because you're ready and you're at a soul level, at a wisdom level. You're ready to create something new. The old has become old and it's ready to be discharged. Okay? All right, those of you that picked card number 3 here from what I think this deck is called the Gilded Tarot. All right, you got a big one here. So interesting. All the cards this week are from the major arcana. So it just speaks to the energy of the power of an eclipse. And this full moon, partial solar or lunar eclipse is going to close out this particular eclipse season. We had one eclipse in Cancer that was the solar eclipse that happened on July 2nd. And now on the 16th, we have this lunar eclipse, okay? So it's like they're bookends. And guaranteed, all of us have been through something in this doorway period, which is waking us up, which is saying, hello, something is being revealed here that is going to change your path. That's the way that eclipses work. It inspires change, and it can be pretty big change. So the piece I want to give you first, okay, is your crystal. And you have, I'm getting to it so I can read you the notes. It is from the fire team, which all the crystals were. And then we have all major arcana cards. Powerful. So the sun is having the say through the crystals. They're all from my fire team. And you have this beautiful little ammonite. I don't know if you can see, but it's hard to see. There we go. You see the beautiful light that comes through this piece. And really, when you look at it more closely, it's rainbow light. Absolutely beautiful. And this is kind of prehistoric in its energy. And it's known to me, both this piece and the larger one that I have, but this is the one that wanted to come forward. This is known to me as karma. And here are the sort of keynotes about this piece for you, for your message. Genderless, past lives, revisit old hurts. This is related to Chiron energy. Unafraid of emotional wounds. It's plutonic in nature. Visiting the past for new revelations. The past comes around again until you do. You might be masterful, but it doesn't mean you are a master. No soul is except source. You haven't figured it all out yet, not even close. There are hidden gems in the past that you missed before, but you can see clearly now with the help of this piece. And your card is the Death card. Oops, holding it upside down. Don't be frightened by this. It's just like in the story, and I've said this for all the cards. Notice if you felt this feeling within you, oh, I hate that trickster crow. He ruined her creation. I had that response too. And then I got to the end and it's like, well, of course. Something has to come along that unravels. It keeps spinning. The energy here, we live on a spinning planet. The energy, and also from lifetime to lifetime, if you're a believer in that kind of thing, the energy keeps spinning. And what the Death card indicates is just the beginning of a new journey. It's you're moving on to something more, and that you have the wisdom you need, that nothing goes deeper than the Death card, because it is a complete renewal. Implicit within this card is the ending, but the beginning. And so, just as with the story, it's not to see the tragedy, the loss of a beautiful tapestry that had been in creation. And perhaps you've been moving along in your life in a certain direction, and then there's some major disruptor, like the trickster crow, that comes along and unravels everything. It's because a new beginning, a new sense of mastery is ready to come forward, and you're just beginning. That's why this little ammonite piece wanted to come forward, not my big one that's like this, because if it was the big one, that to me would mean more of a definitive ending of a huge cycle. That's like ending of a book, and you're putting the book aside and starting something completely different. This is just new chapter. When I see this little piece come up, it's just you're getting your energy started. Okay, we got to get our momentum going again, just like the old woman in the story. She's got it. She sees the glint of the green thread, and what that inspires with her is the firepower. This is inspiration energy. All of the crystals this week, fire, a pickup, a new energy getting started to begin a new inspirational journey. Remember, this has all of this beautiful sort of rainbow energy in it. See that? Every possibility exists. Do not shut yourself down, no matter what is happening to you, no matter what is getting unraveled in your life. Please do not shut your energy down. This lunar eclipse is about letting go of feelings that are about, oh my God, it's unraveled and it's over. This is I'm just over. This is done. All the cards indicate what we're being called to let go of. And this meaning and the reason I read the story is to begin pointing your direction into a new perspective. And you, of all the cards, are really starting a new perspective. Again, this is you're just getting started with really tapping into a level of mastery in your life that you haven't yet been to, or you only touched on it in a previous portion of your life, or perhaps a different lifetime. But it's to let go of this feeling of when I show you, you have the death card. It's to let go of that feeling like you're feeling towards the trickster crow. Oh, but this is just the beginning. You have to let go of that fear that shuts you down, because that's the thing. When we feel fear, and I say, and you have the death card, the card is saying what to let go of. Your very structured thinking looks at this and says, holy crap, something is really ending. Maybe it's even me. And I'm not saying that. What I'm saying is this very strict, boom, done, over. The old woman in the story never picks up her weaving ever again. Not going to happen. It's part of her purpose. It's part of why she's here. You ending ever, never. This is a very strict way of thinking and being that Capricorn energy can be. And this is what wants to be discharged. It wants to go, because you're winding up brand new energy that has every potential to it. There's no definitive ending. There's no and you're done and you're over. No, you're becoming more because you're ready for that. Okay? Very, very significant energy always with eclipses, and especially the second one tends to be the one because it closes out this feeling of, and we're done, and out the old stuff goes, and you're moving on to something new, just as the old woman does in the story, picking up that glinting green thread, and a whole new inspiration occurs to her, and she begins a new creation. And that's you too. I hope you have a wonderful eclipse. See the benefits, not the loss. Bye-bye for now.